As any business student will tell you, all companies go through a series of booms and busts. There are good periods, there are bad periods. This is totally natural in the life cycle of a business. But I think we can say that Taco Bell had a particularly bumpy adolescence. If you happen to stumble across this video, I hope it gives you what researching it gave me. Insight into the life of one of America's great but rarely talked about entrepreneurs, and the still relevant strategies he and his company deployed to establish a lasting brand. A lasting brand at a time, mind you, when the average American didn't even know what a taco was, let alone had ever tried one. I guess it's not really a surprise that not many people know who Glen Bell is. After all, unlike Mark Zuckerberg or Ray Kroc, he doesn't have a movie made after him. Probably because he didn't screw over honest, hard-working business partners in the name of expedience, ego, or greed. When Glen Bell returned to America after having served as a chef in World War II, which is, by the way, the job I would want if I was serving in World War II, he found himself wanting to monetize his skills as a cook. Between the years of 1948 and 1957, he started no fewer than 7 businesses in Southern California. Glen Bell would go on to leave each one of these businesses within just 3 years, usually by selling his share in the company to a business partner or family member. Back in the 40s, Southern California was the Silicon Valley of the budding fast food industry. Glen Bell himself lived in San Bernardino, where he and his friends ate at a certain fast food joint. But for Glen himself, it wasn't until 1962 that he would settle into the one business that would define his career. The items on that first ever menu board included things like the Bell Burger, frijoles, the burrito, the tostada, and the hard shell taco. The hard shell taco was something Glen Bell had perfected over the course of several years, after having gotten some pointers from a fellow restaurant owner. That hard shell taco helped make the first restaurant such a success that Bell franchised the concept only 2 years later. Decades of food business experience must have really paid off for the guy, because it only took 3 more years for him to open 100 more restaurants. By 1978, with over 1,000 locations, Glen Bell sold the Taco Bell brand to PepsiCo for $125 million. And as the story goes, that is where the trouble started. About 5 years after their acquisition, PepsiCo realized that their newly purchased taco empire was already crumbling from within. Their original goal was to take a regional taco chain beloved by Californians and turn it into a national one. It looked like a pretty sound strategy. After all, McDonald's was already doing it, and they managed their growth without the mountains of cash from a long-established brand like PepsiCo. McDonald's must have known something that Pepsi didn't, because Taco Bell was down 16% in those early years. Looking back, I don't think PepsiCo was entirely to blame for the rocky start Taco Bell's expansion had. After all, this was the 80s, and outside California, not many Americans were eating Latin American food. This made the young taco chain a much riskier investment when compared to the burger brands. In either case, it seemed like PepsiCo had signed on to expand a dying niche business. Enter John Martin. John Martin was already a veteran of the fast food industry when he was brought on to help save Taco Bell from the brink. The way he saw it, the company did have some big problems, but problems that could be solved with some fairly simple solutions. 1. Taco Bell was stuck in the past. They were running their business based on the old way of doing things, which assumed what the customer wanted rather than simply asking them. 2. This lack of communication led to all sorts of bad decisions on the part of management. This included buying fancy decor for restaurants, massive, overly complicated menus, outdoor playgrounds, and oversized kitchens. The solution to all this? Give the customer what they wanted and nothing more. They wanted tasty food that was fast and cheap. Old menus? Gone. Welcome Mexican pizza, welcome nachos Bel Grande, welcome soft shell tacos. Remember those oversized kitchens that were costing the company a lot of money to run and staff? Well, they're about to get smaller, like 70% smaller. But how are you gonna do that, John? Well, we're gonna stop cooking tacos. Wait, what? Yeah, we'll just let the manufacturer cook the food. That way our people only have to assemble it. It'll be a lot faster and way cheaper. As a matter of fact, as of the 1980s, Taco Bell isn't even classified as a restaurant anymore, at least not in the strictest sense of the word. If a restaurant is a place where people pay to sit and eat meals that are cooked and served on the premises, then Taco Bell just doesn't qualify. Today, Taco Bell's beef arrives in pre-cooked bags that only need to be reheated by putting them in hot water. In the company's own words on their website, Taco Bell is more of a taco retailer these days, and it's all thanks to John. This is incredibly interesting, because in one masterful stroke, John Martin was able to take Taco Bell's biggest liability and turn it into one of their greatest assets. Allow me to explain. The American burger was and still is more popular than the taco, at least here in the States. But cooking and crafting burgers, it isn't cheap. Look inside a McDonald's restaurant today. You'll find these big things called fryers, and they're often accompanied by their romantic partners, the grill. Together, these hulking monstrosities take up a ton of space. The result? McDonald's equals big kitchens, big equipment, big playgrounds, big everything. This makes their stores nearly twice the size of a Taco Bell location on average, and I would imagine a lot more expensive to build and operate. After all, don't smaller locations mean less equipment? And doesn't less equipment mean smaller utility bills? Add to that cheaper leases and just overall less labor costs, and that leaves more money in the company coffers, as well as the customer's wallet. If you think about it, this places Taco Bell closer in relationship to a restaurant like Subway than it does to a restaurant like McDonald's. These buildings are where food gets cooked and assembled. These buildings are just where food gets assembled. With this new strategy in place, Taco Bell took the 90s by storm.
Yo quiero Taco Bell.
They went from 1,000 locations in the year of the PepsiCo acquisition to over 6,800 locations by 1996. John Martin had picked up where the founder left off, and the result was a taco empire spanning 17 countries by the closing of the century. This wasn't to say Taco Bell's problems were over for good. Those pre-cooked beef bags that helped save the company years earlier would eventually land them in hot water, pun intended. You might remember the whole Taco Bell's meat isn't real meat fiasco. It was a pretty big deal back in the day. For those who don't remember, there were rumors going around that Taco Bell's meat was made up entirely of raw oats and horse feed or something. Well, that entire thing was totally false. Just a frivolous lawsuit made up by some greedy lawyers, probably secretly paid by McDonald's or some other competitor. It did, however, do a ton of damage to Taco Bell's reputation, so much so that, that story still exists in the minds of many consumers today. The year that story broke, Taco Bell sales was down by 28% and took a hell of a long time to recover. But lucky for the taco empire today, they're bigger and stronger than ever, so I don't know if anyone is going to watch this video outside my immediate friend group, so if you just so happen to stumble across this side of the internet and you did watch this whole thing, I really did enjoy turning the reading and research I was doing into a video, so if people like it, I'll definitely make some more.